Hey everyone, welcome to The Bold and the Beautiful. I'm Oma, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Bold and Beautiful update, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in. You ever have one of those moments where your heart is split in two? Where everything you want collides with everything you should do? That was me watching Beth spin in my arms, laughing like the world was perfect, while outside, chaos was closing in. Bill was plotting, Grace was caught in the middle, Luna was still a threat. And then there was hope. She couldn't stop thinking about me, and I couldn't stop thinking about her. I wanted to reach for her, to erase the months of distance with one touch, but I couldn't. Carter deserved better. She deserved honesty. And yet, all I felt was longing, pulling me toward what used to be, toward what could still be. And in that storm, I realized one thing. Love doesn't wait for perfect timing. It doesn't care about logic. It just hits you, and it won't let go. I remember that morning like it happened yesterday. The sunlight slanting through the living room window felt warm on my skin, but inside, my heart was anything but calm. Beth, my little girl, was bouncing around in her tiny ballet slippers, all excitement and giggles. She had a daddy-daughter dance coming up, and apparently, she was already practicing. She tugged on my hand with the intensity only a 5-year-old could muster. "Daddy, can we practice now? Please. I want to get it perfect." I laughed, the sound catching in my throat because, honestly, how could I say no? Her smile was infectious, a beam of pure joy, and for a brief moment, I forgot all the chaos surrounding my life. I took her tiny hands in mine, guiding her through the steps. She wobbled and twirled, and each time she stumbled, she looked up at me with those wide, trusting eyes, expecting me to catch her. And I did, every time. I could see myself in her, in a way, trying so hard to hold everything together, to be the dad, the man, the protector. And for those few minutes, it felt like maybe I was doing it right. Maybe I could still be the father she deserved, no matter what storms were raging around us. But outside this bubble of laughter and music, the world was anything but safe. I knew Hope was watching from afar, receiving updates from someone who couldn't help but gush about what a wonderful father I was. And I could feel it, her pull, that lingering tug in her heart that she tried to deny. She still loved me. I could feel it in every hesitant glance, every tiny sigh of longing. Hope had Carter now, a kind man, a solid man, someone who deserved her. And yet, she couldn't resist the pull of our history, the pull of everything we had shared. And I hated myself for knowing that. Because I wanted her to be happy, but I also knew I was still the gravity in her orbit. Meanwhile, the Spencer family was facing another storm of a very different kind. Bill had been pacing around the mansion, his jaw set, his eyes cold. He had discovered what Grace Buckingham had done, faking my brain tumor, the surgery, all of it. And I wasn't the only one furious. Katie was beside herself, trying to rein him in, trying to remind him that some things, some lines, couldn't be crossed. But Bill wasn't listening. He never really did. And that's when the idea struck him. A dangerous, twisted plan that could either save us or destroy us. He would offer Grace a deal. Freedom. A chance to escape her legal troubles. But there would be a cost. She would have to do something only she could do. Something sinister. Something that could, if done, end Luna's presence in our lives permanently. I had to sit down just thinking about it. My hands shook as I poured a glass of water, staring at the condensation forming tiny rivulets on the outside of the glass. Could Grace even consider something like that? And could Bill really go through with it? Katie's words echoed in my mind. He wouldn't kill Luna. He couldn't. And yet, part of me worried he might just tell her what she wanted to hear to get her on board, and then act behind the curtain when no one was watching. And all of this chaos, happened while Beth twirled in front of me, blissfully unaware of the schemes and secrets threatening to engulf our lives. She didn't know about Luna, about Bill's plans, about Grace's desperate choices. She just knew her daddy was there, guiding her, and that for one fleeting morning, nothing else mattered. That's what made it so cruel. Because the world outside that living room wasn't kind, and soon enough, even that small bubble of safety would be pierced. I remember thinking about Hope again, and my chest tightened. She had to see this, had to feel this moment too, even if it hurt her. She had to understand, I was still a father first, a man with a daughter depending on me. And maybe, just maybe, she'd remember why she loved me in the first place. But there was no time for reflection, no time for hesitation. The fashion show at Forrester Creations was looming, and Ridge and Eric were brimming with confidence, determined to make it a success. Brooke was there too, barely able to keep her hands off Ridge, reminding everyone that love and chaos often go hand in hand. And while they celebrated their reunion, I was left with the weight of everything else. Hope, Beth, Bill, Grace, and the looming threat of Luna. I couldn't shake the image of Beth spinning in my arms, laughing, even as the shadows of everything else crept closer. And I knew that outside my little bubble, the world was far from safe. Bill had called Grace Buckingham into his office earlier that day, and I'd overheard snippets, the kind that make your stomach turn. He was pacing back and forth, each step deliberate and heavy, his hands clenching and unclenching as he tried to control the fury in his chest. "You lied to us, Grace," he said, his voice low but laced with ice. "You faked Liam's tumor. You faked the surgery. You manipulated the whole family, and you're lucky we didn't call the cops yesterday. Do you understand me?" Grace swallowed hard. Her eyes flicked toward the floor. "Yes, I know it was wrong. I didn't think anyone would find out." Her voice trailed off, barely audible. She wasn't just afraid of Bill. She was afraid of the consequences she'd already set in motion. Bill's eyes darkened. "You want to make this right? You want to save yourself? There's a way. But it won't be pretty. It'll require creativity. And I'm not asking politely." I could feel my stomach twist just thinking about what he was planning. Grace had been caught in his storm, but now he was offering her a lifeline, one that would almost certainly involve hurting Luna. The thought made my hands shake. I wanted to scream at Bill, tell him no, but I knew him. I knew that if he set his mind to something, he'd find a way to do it, even if everyone else tried to stop him. Meanwhile, Hope was spiraling in her own way. She had been getting updates about Beth and me. Little anecdotes, pictures, texts from friends and family who wanted to share the happiness she was missing. And every message, every little snippet, tugged at her heart. She felt it. That pull toward me that she had been trying to resist. And it was tearing her apart. She tried to focus on Carter, the man she had committed herself to, the man who loved her with a steadfastness she couldn't deny. But it was like a part of her heart had been carved out and reserved for me. Every laugh from Beth, every smile, every moment I shared with her daughter reminded Hope of what she had loved, and still loved, about me. By the time the Forrester showroom opened that morning, the tension had only thickened. Ridge and Eric were buzzing with excitement, preparing for the upcoming fashion show. The energy in the room was electric, yet layered with undercurrents of stress. Brooke was there, and the sight of her with Ridge, so perfectly aligned again after all the heartache, stirred something inside everyone present. Even me, though I tried to bury it, felt the bittersweet sting of what could have been. Brooke and Ridge had found their way back to each other, their love rekindled in a blaze of emotion that was impossible to ignore. But even their happiness was tempered by the pressures of the event. There were models to dress, schedules to coordinate, the collection to perfect. Every detail had to be flawless. And yet, watching them, I couldn't help but feel a pang of envy and longing. The ease of their connection, the certainty of their love, was something I had lost. Something I wasn't sure I could ever get back with Hope. Back at Bill's mansion, I found myself in the study with him, trying to pass the storm in his mind. He was ruthless, calculating, and yet, underneath that, there was an almost desperate desire to control every outcome, to protect the family in his own way. "I need Grace to handle this," he said finally, voice tight with authority. "She knows the only way to contain Luna. And if she doesn't, well, let's just say there's no room for error." I looked at him, my chest tightening. You can't just manipulate her like that. This isn't just business, Bill. Luna is. She's pregnant. You can't threaten her life like that. He shot me a look, sharp and unreadable. Katie thinks I won't go that far. Maybe I won't. Maybe I will. That's not your decision to make. I wanted to argue, to fight, but I knew it was useless. Bill had always had a way of making people feel powerless, like the world would bend to his will, whether you wanted it to or not. Meanwhile, Hope had made the decision to speak with Brooke. She needed guidance, someone to help her navigate the storm of emotions swirling inside her. She couldn't stop thinking about me, about the little moments with Beth, and every time she imagined them, it pulled her further from Carter, further into a world she had thought she'd left behind. She explained to Brooke how conflicted she felt, how much she still loved me despite everything, and Brooke listened. Not with judgment, but with understanding, with the kind of wisdom only someone who had lived through love and loss could offer. You can't ignore your heart, Hope, Brooke told her gently. But you also have to think about the people around you. Love isn't just about desire, it's about responsibility, honesty, and sometimes, sacrifice. Hope nodded, tears brimming. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. I want him so badly, but I can't hurt Carter. Brooke placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Then you take it one day at a time. You figure out what you can live with, and what you can't. But don't deny yourself the truth. The heart will always find a way to speak, whether you're ready or not. That evening, I found myself back in the dance room with Beth. She was practicing her spins, her laughter ringing through the room, a pure reminder of what mattered. I held her hands, guiding her through the steps once more, feeling the weight of everything else fade, if only for a little while. But even as I twirled her, the storm was still there. Bill's plan, Grace's dilemma, Hope's longing, and Luna's looming threat were all impossible to ignore. Every moment of peace was just a fragile bubble in a world that had grown increasingly dangerous, unpredictable, and morally gray. And in that moment, I realized that life wasn't going to wait for me to catch my breath. Choices had to be made. Loyalties tested. Hearts could be broken, or saved, depending on what happened next. Beth looked up at me, her eyes bright, and asked, Daddy, are we done practicing? I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Not yet, sweet girl. We've got plenty of time. The next morning, the house felt heavier. The kind of heavy that presses on your chest and makes it impossible to breathe deeply. I was downstairs, sipping coffee, trying to think about anything other than what Bill was planning with Grace, when Beth came running up to me again. Daddy, can we practice the lift? She squealed, holding out her little arms as if she were ready to be swept into a waltz. I swallowed, forcing a smile. Of course, princess. I lifted her into my arms, feeling her small weight and the way she instinctively rested her head on my shoulder. It was grounding, comforting, a small tether to a world that wasn't chaos and schemes. She laughed as I spun her gently, and I let myself get lost in it. For a few moments, the outside world didn't exist. There were no lies, no manipulations, no threats. There was just us. But the peace didn't last. My phone buzzed, a message from Hope. Watching you with Beth. I can't stop thinking about you. I froze, heart hammering. I knew this would happen. I knew she'd feel the pull, the draw that had never truly gone away. But seeing the words there on my screen, seeing her vulnerability laid bare, made it impossible to ignore. My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to answer immediately, to tell her I felt the same, to bridge the distance between us in a heartbeat. But I couldn't. Not yet. Carter's name echoed in my mind, the man who loved her fiercely and who deserved her honesty. And I had to respect that, even as a part of me ached with longing. Meanwhile, Bill's plans were moving faster than I expected. Grace Buckingham had been summoned to the mansion, her hands shaking slightly as she walked into the room. Bill's eyes were hard, unyielding, but there was a glimmer of something else, satisfaction. I want you to fix this, Grace, he said, voice low and commanding. Do what needs to be done. Protect the family. And in return, he let the sentence hang, letting the implication of freedom and a clean slate settle over her like a heavy fog. Grace's lips parted, her hands twisting nervously. I don't know if I can. This is more than I can handle. Bill's gaze sharpened. You can. You will. Because if you don't, everyone you care about will pay the price. Her eyes flicked down, a storm of fear and guilt passing over her face. She knew exactly what he meant, and the weight of the choice crushed her. As the day progressed, I found myself pacing, unable to focus on Beth's practice or even my own thoughts. The pull of Hope's message, the tension with Bill, the impending danger to Luna, it was too much. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, wind whipping around me, with no safe place to land. Hope, meanwhile, had made a decision. She came to me quietly, standing in the doorway of my living room as Beth napped, her eyes full of uncertainty and longing. Liam. I can't stop thinking about you, she admitted, voice trembling. I tried. I really tried, but seeing you with Beth, knowing how amazing you are with her, it's too much. I felt my heart split in two. Part of me wanted to take her in my arms, to erase the months of distance and denial with one kiss, to tell her that I had never stopped loving her. But another part of me, the part that respected the life she had built with Carter, knew it wasn't that simple. Hope, I said carefully. I feel the same way. You know I do. But we can't just erase everything else. Carter, he loves you. And you can't hurt him. Her eyes filled with tears. I know I can't. But it's tearing me apart to stay away. I reached for her hand, feeling the warmth, the familiar softness. We'll figure it out, I whispered. We always do. The tension of our hearts, the fragile thread between desire and responsibility, was almost unbearable. Yet, in that moment, nothing else mattered. We weren't thinking about Bill, Luna, Grace, or the fashion show. We were just two people caught in the pull of what had always been, wondering if fate would let us have a second chance. And then there was Beth, her laughter echoing faintly from upstairs as she practiced her dance steps, blissfully unaware of the adult chaos surrounding her. I smiled despite everything. She deserved this happiness. She deserved a father who was fully present, even if the world outside our walls was spinning out of control. By the evening, Bill's negotiations with Grace reached a tense standoff. She had agreed to help him, but not in the way he had feared. Instead of doing anything irreversible, she found a loophole, a way to protect Luna without sacrificing her life or the unborn child. Bill, at first furious, had little choice but to accept. Grace had manipulated the situation with the same brilliance that had once made her so dangerous, and in the end, she kept her freedom and stopped Luna from becoming a pawn in Bill's game. I didn't witness every detail, but the relief that washed over me was immediate. The weight of impending doom lifted slightly. Luna was still Luna, unpredictable, dangerous in her own ways, but at least for now, the immediate threat had been contained. That night, I tucked Beth into bed, smoothing the hair from her face. You were amazing today, I whispered. You danced like a star. She smiled sleepily, her eyelids heavy. Daddy, promise we'll dance again tomorrow? I kissed her forehead. Always, sweet girl. Always. Later, I sat alone in the living room, phone in hand, reading Hope's message once more. My chest tightened again, a mixture of longing and hope that never quite went away. Life was complicated, messy, and unpredictable. But for a brief moment, I allowed myself to breathe, to feel gratitude for the people I loved and the small victories that made the chaos bearable. Because no matter what came next, whether it was more drama, heartbreak, or danger, I knew one thing for certain. Love, family, and the bonds we hold dear were the things that truly mattered. And as long as I had Beth laughing in my arms and Hope's heart still whispering across the miles, I knew we could face whatever storms were coming.